Hi there and welcome along to the second episode of Form Check Friday, where I look at various rowers on rowing machines and give my opinion on what I think works and what could do with a little bit of help, and then give some tips on what they could do. Now today we're going to look at Daniel Bates on a water rower. We're going to look at some stock footage, one clip which shows just how bad the technique can get, and then finally a little tip which I think might help people who struggle with the idea of how to hang off the handle. Alright, let's get in to Daniel Bates on his water rower. Okay then, here we go. Let's just hit play on this. Now this is Daniel rowing at 18 strokes a minute. He's very kindly done this through various stroke rates for me, but if you look at the 18 right now, then the main thing that's going on here is there's a bit of a strange kind of wrist flexion that's going on. Oh, we jumped up to 20. Let me just quickly scoot back to 18 again. Just so we can get, so there's a bit of a strange kind of overhook that happens at both ends, which has probably got something to do with this kind of strange angle that's, well, not strange, but this angle that's happening of his elbows coming upwards rather than being down and flat, and maybe a slight flare out of the elbows. He's kind of finishing with this bunny hands thing, which, trust me, I know all about because I do all the time. But the thing is that as he comes forwards again, if you look at his wrists, they are very kind of hooked forwards. It's maybe not the best of the frames for me to have stopped on, but if you look at him as he's coming backwards and forwards, you can see on that return is definitely an overhook. Now this could be something to do with the water rower, it must be said, that it's because the handle return is so much lower and that's what he's looking for. He's constantly trying to get down to the bottom, so there could well be a machine thing here, which again is one of the reasons why you fly the flag for concept 2. But the real thing that I'd say is just that kind of the elbows down and the wrists up thing, which really, even as I'm doing this to demonstrate, it's really putting this force into the side of the forearms, either side, if you kind of come into that bunny hand position. I mean, his legs are out. If you look at it, at the back of the drive, legs are nice and straight, so that's good. It means he's getting all the power in from his legs. Toes seem to be there pointing forwards towards the top of the machine, so he's definitely got his feet connected properly. You look at the size of him, he's obviously very powerful and able to put in a lot of power into the stroke, so that's good. Posture-wise, well, I mean, it looks as though he could probably be a little bit more powerful. He doesn't look, I wouldn't say he's slumped, but he certainly doesn't look entirely powerful at the back of the stroke. As you come into the front, there definitely is that sense of sitting back on his hips slightly. Let's quickly get to my squiggle. There's like definitely a rounding, great drawing, rounding of his back that's happening. But again, I see this a lot with the water rowers. If you look at the seat on the water rower, it really encourages you to sit in the middle of the seat and for your posture to round underneath you. So like looking here, you can see that it's kind of rounded on rather than sitting forwards. But again, this is very much to do with the dynamics of a water rower. Even if you look, the position he's in order to get to where he wants to get, his shins are slightly forwards. So again, I'd prefer maybe the heels to be down a little bit so the shins aren't going too far forwards. But this could all be part of just the mechanics of how the water rower is put together. Or sorry, it's the mechanics of how you sit on the water rower is kind of more what I mean. Because again, his hands are down really low at the front. Look at it's a real reach down to the bottom of it rather than a neutral height. So I'd much rather that as he came forward, his hands were like kind of more at that angle. Okay, I'm going to clear some of these lines. I'd much rather that as he came forwards, if we come, so let's see where his hands. So yeah, so you kind of want his arms to continue in that plane, but as he comes forwards, there's this real drop down in order to get it down to the bottom. So this is very much an issue just with the return of the water rowers. So it's kind of stuck in a bit of an odd position where he actually looks as though, I'd guess that Daniel actually has quite a good rowing background, looking at what he's like, that he's maybe been on the water or something before, but as a result of the water rower, everything's going down. Now remember, when I'm doing, let's just let him run for a while, so you can watch him in the background. When I'm doing the warm-up on my RowAlong workouts, when I'm talking about setting up the machine, what I say is to put the monitor at eye height so that you can look like you can keep that posture up, and that helps. Whereas because the monitor on this is down low and everything's about forcing you down low, it's not really conducive to keeping your posture up. Now the thing is, right, now we get up to 26 strokes a minute. This is where things start to fall apart a little. If you look at his arms and his knees, he's lifting, let's go slow-mo, he's lifting his hands over his knees. There's a real arch. So he finishes high, and then the handle comes down. The knees are already bending well before, let's see, as he comes down, his knees start to bend there well before his hands start to come forwards. And then as such, because he's bending his knees, he has to lift his hands up over his knees to get to the front. Now, I'd much rather that as he came into the back, that came out, push the hands away, tilt over the back, and then get into that knees bending position to slide to the front. And it could well be that because he's doing this, it's almost like because you then have to dive into the front because of lifting the handle up over your knees. It's almost like you're giving yourself that arch. So if the hands come straight out and you rock and then nothing else moves, then you come in at the right angle. So your hands rock, you just come in, you don't have to do any more rocking whatsoever. Whereas when you do this, you're then, this is the result, is that kind of dip across the front. Obviously I'm over exaggerating what's going on here with Daniel, but that's kind of what's happening, is that because he's throwing the handle over his knees, and then also because he's coming in low with the handle at the front of the machine, it's kind of dumping his posture at the front rather than being up and powerful. Weirdly, when you're at 18 strokes a minute, the problem with the knees coming up before the hands go past them isn't really there, but at 26 it really is there. So that's the main things that I'd say there. Once the knee was addressed and once the posture was addressed, then you can start to look at other things, like I said, about the shins not going too far forwards, the heels not coming up too far off the foot plate, which again, both of them would fix each other. If you weren't over bending with the knees, then your heels wouldn't be coming up, or if your heels weren't coming up, then you wouldn't be going too far forwards with your knees. So there you go. That's kind of my summary of what I would say for Daniel's stroke. It'd be interesting to see, again, if you were able to look at this and address these things and then take another video and then see what's happened in terms of the posture improvements and the hands coming away, and maybe that kind of loose hook downwards with your wrists as you're coming forwards, and the finish, which you're kind of having the bunny hand, which, like I say, that's my problem too. Anyway, so there we go. That's Daniel's review done. Let's move on to the stock footage. Okay then, so this is a clip that I downloaded in order to make my title sequence. Now, it's fair to say that this girl is a model, she's not a rower, so being maybe a little bit on the unfair side by really looking at her technique, but I want to use this one to show you just how bad a technique can get, and I'll give you an idea of how you might want to get around it. So if I hit play on this, it's in slow-mo, so you get a good look at it. You can see just the weirdness that seems to be happening. So her leg drive comes out completely straight before she even connects with her hands, which is a bit strange for the first point. But then her knees come up well before she starts the pull into her stomach. And then she seems to be nearly at the front of the machine by the time she does finish her pull. Which is all a bit strange. So if we look at it bit by bit, she drives, and now round about here would be where I'd want her to, round about legs halfway, would be when I'd want her to swing over her back, okay, to do that pivot from the forward lean to the backward lean. But that doesn't seem to happen for a while. Now, does it ever happen? No. So I see her right about there, but she goes into more of a, instead of it being a 11 o'clock lean in the back, she's pretty much just kind of vertical. But her legs are down, and then she starts to pull in with her arms. Now, of course, you want to delay the arm pull to make sure you can get the power out of your legs and your back, but not this much. And then as she comes forwards, the knees come up, and then it's like, I wonder whether she even pulled with the handle, or whether the handle just came straight down rather than pulling. But then she travels to the front of the machine, and then at this stage, you got to think, well, I've got to get my arms out straight again. So what does she do? She throws the handle up and over her knees. She's completely hyperextended to the front of the machine, so you can see like the angle. Again, this is one of these, like episode 1, where her knees and her back are the wrong way round. Her back should be leaning forwards into that 1 o'clock position, and her knees should be vertical, but she's the wrong way round. Arms aren't entirely straight, but hey, let's forgive her that at this point. They eventually come out straight, and to be honest, so around about here, if her hands were higher, if her arms were more that kind of that plane, because her backs start kind of up a bit, her shins are vertical-ish. That's almost a good, that's a good position to be in. But then she goes for the drive again, and it all kind of goes terribly wrong. She's there. You can see her shoulders. Good grief, her shoulders. If you watch them here, they go right up into her ear. So she's kind of lunging, really kind of lurching up with her shoulders. She's still got her legs are down. Her arms haven't started pulling yet. So this is. I'm not even looking at the guy in the background. I'm just looking at her to see exactly what's going on with her. But then she does that dump into her waist as the knees come forward. So this is what you kind of most commonly see in the gym is like a, I want to say, don't want to say a newbie, but like someone who's never been anywhere near a rowing machine. They're likely to do this kind of thing where they're really kind of coming up. And it's this launch backwards and forwards with their hips, the knees come up. There's no real pull or push with the hands. It's like it's a real roller coaster of a journey that they're doing going backwards and forwards. Now, there's a few reasons that this is bad, okay? For a start, I was down to like 350 splits there, and actually my lower back is in a lot of pain from doing that. And also this constant rolling, grinding, hips pointing backwards, hips going forwards, well, that's just like a rolling pin of my sit bones over my glutes, okay? And that's going to give me, like the back thing is going to end giving me real lumbar pain afterwards. All these people that say, I've got a sore back from rowing, that's why, because of this kind of launch, this lurch backwards and forwards. But also, if you've got the people that say they've got a sore backside, then it's going to be with your hips pointing backwards and then hips rolling forwards, or even just going backwards and up. That rolling, grinding of your sit bones over your glutes, it's just going to mash them. It'll be like a rolling pin. It'll be just, oh, it'd be awful. Yeah, and so that's going to be why people who row like that will end up in pain and then end up saying, I hate rowing, it causes me it hurts, basically is all I'm saying. So what she should do, and actually what I kind of suggest for Daniel too, is to row in slow motion, okay? I'm not really that much of an advocate of, you get things called pick drills, which is when you get to a point and then you think, right, I'm going to pick the point of the stroke that I want to work on. So say I wanted to work on my hands away, you do that, you'd pause and go, okay, my hands are away, and then you go through into it again. Or maybe you want to do the hands away in the hip rock, and then you go, yeah, it's very good, I'm in the right position. But for me, that completely loses the connectivity of the stroke. So what I prefer is to row in slow motion, okay? So you don't put much force into the machine, but you just think about each stage. If you're going slow enough, you can think, right, arms away, rock over my hips, bend my knees. Okay, this is slow enough. I'm at 11 strokes per minute, okay? And I can just think at this stage, all right, so the hands come in, straight back out, rock over my hips, bend my knees. So for Daniel, this is just the thing to do to make sure that you've practiced the feeling of what it's like to get the hands straight out in front of you, rock over your hips, bend your knees. And then you can think about, right, what are my wrists like as I come into that pull to the back. Put a mirror in front of you so you can see, are your wrists flat at this stage, and then continue with your strokes. So I can look in the mirror, arms away, rock over hips, bend knees. And then again, if you have an issue with handle height, if you're the type of person that dumps down at the front, then you can think, right, straight arms, rock, I'm in the right position, all I have to do is bend my knees. I'm not changing anything about my body angle or my arms being either high or straight. And you can keep an eye, you can see I've got a piece of red tape on the machine, and that's the height that I want my chain to return at and to come back out at. Well, obviously, difficult to do in a water rower, but if you can think about just being a nice neutral height in front of you, okay? So rather than low to try and return it there, and certainly not high, then that should help you just to think about a nice, natural, powerful posture. And of course, like I said, there's the issue with the monitor, and that because everything's low down, you're almost kind of craning down to look at your monitor rather than here, because I've got my PM5 at eye height. I can kind of concentrate on that to keep my posture right. So it's a bit unfortunate to kind of keep on saying it's of the mechanics of the water rower, but there is definitely a part of that is causing some issues with Daniel's rowing. Who knows what's happening with the model, but for Daniel it was. So yeah, so again, go back to Daniel, just make sure and just think about coming forwards, think about shins vertical and whether your heels are coming off, and whether your shins are vertical, and then that's kind of how to kind of come to the end of what you're going to be doing. And then I'd like to see a video of what you're like once you've addressed all of that at the end of it. Right then, so that's me looked at the videos for Form Check Friday. Finally, I just want to give you a quick tip on how to really get your head around the idea of how to hang off the handle at the drive. Okay, so apologies for the rather dingy corner of this studio, but it's a great way to try and explain what hanging off the handle is like, okay? And it's using a pull-up bar. So basically, when you hang off a handle, it's kind of just the same as doing this and hanging off a pull-up bar, okay? So I'm supporting all 75 kilograms of my weight by just hanging from the top. And I could probably hold this for a good couple of minutes before it got a bit too much for me, okay? Now, so that's the idea of driving with your legs, with your arms straight, forward lean, and then finishing at the back of the stroke, okay? If I was to grab early at the front of the machine, that's like doing this, right, hang on. Okay, so it's like holding myself up using my arms, my biceps or whatever, as I'm suddenly using my arm muscles to kind of suspend me in midair, rather than just using, and you see my arms shaking away, that's ridiculous, rather than using just the chain through my arms, the stability of the tendons and the ligaments and everything, which kind of puts the power, grounds it up into the handle. By suddenly bracing against it with my muscles, it's all turned into a completely different thing, and it's really quite, well, like you see from my arms shaking, you're suddenly just throwing in so much force into something that I didn't need to when I was just hanging off the top. So I'm kind of tiring my arms out quicker because I'm pulling earlier. But the other thing, right, if I hang here, I can pull myself up from straight, I can pull myself up to the top. Hey, 2 pull-ups. Quite easy, okay? I wouldn't want to do more than 2. But if I go into this position again, like this, halfway there, right? The force that it takes to get from this half pull to the top, to be honest, yes, I've obviously used up some muscle power because I've did 2 before, obviously. But because I've used up half of my available muscle power, the final pull to the top, it's finding it really, really difficult to do. And it's the same with the stroke. So if you pull early from the front and you're fighting against the leg drive anyway, then you're pulling, you're tiring out your muscles, and then when you get to the back, you've lost so much power from that initial thing at the front that you're not able to get it into the front. So if you're able to hang off the handle on the rowing machine, and then you do your leg drive to halfway, you can then add in that extra arm pull at the finish. So I know there's lots of people out there that do say, oh, but I can't row as fast if I've got straight arms, I have to grab from the front. Hopefully that's a good example of you don't need to. You can drive with the legs, arms straight, and then add in that arm pull at the back of the stroke to give you even more power. And don't waste your muscles away by pulling too soon, fighting your legs or fighting with your biceps rather than going up through your chain and into the handle, okay? Long-winded way to put it, and hey, I got to show off that I can do 2 pull-ups, but hopefully this made sense. Thank you so much for being here and checking out this video. Please check out the RowAlong workouts that I have on this channel. And remember, I do Form Check Fridays every Friday, where I look at some folks on rowing machines and give my ideas of what might work, what might not work for what they're doing, give some tips, and then maybe give the odd tip like this too. All right, thank you so much. Stay safe, be well. Bye-bye.